Hello YouTube, this is Vlad, and today I'll be continuing my discussion of ideas in EU4 with aristocratic ideas. I chose this idea group because I see people either dismissing this idea group outright or overrating it. And it's because I think these ideas are a little bit harder to understand the value of compared to other military ideas. Reason for that is that aristocratic ideas is the only military idea group that gives you non-military bonuses. So the purpose of today's video is going to be to talk about the mathematical effects of each of these ideas on your nation, and to help you put them into perspective so that you can decide whether taking these ideas is worth it for your particular playthrough. So today I decided to look at the actual game engine. So I just start up a game with Denmark. Denmark, in my opinion, is actually a relatively good choice to take aristocratic ideas, and I'm going to explain why. So, first off, in aristocratic ideas, we have noble knights, negative 10% cavalry cost, and plus 10% combat ability. Now, this is a little bit frustrating because combat ability doesn't really appear anywhere in the numbers that are readily apparent to you. Right here, under cavalry combat ability, there's a place to show you the effectiveness of it, but it's not actually going to affect these fire and shock values right here. What combat ability does is, if you look at the calculations for land warfare, it's going to apply a flat bonus to the number of casualties that your units cause. So plus 10% combat bonus really just means a 10% increase in casualties. So how much is that really? Well, it really depends on how much your country is using cavalry. In general, well, let's just talk about this in the beginning. Why do you use cavalry over infantry? Cavalry is 2.5 times more expensive than infantry, but it's not that much more effective. This is doing 1 total damage in the shock phase compared to 0.85 total damage per infantry in both phases. So why would you pay for something that is only slightly more effective if it's 2.5 times as much? The answer really comes down to 2 constants in the game. That is combat width and flanking range. So you can only have 20 units fighting in the front row at any given time. That means that once you get up to your combat width, as I have with Denmark, as I have 20 total units, the only way to increase your damage output is to start replacing infantry with cavalry. So that's why cavalry is so much more expensive, because even though it's doing more damage, it still takes up the same unit slot. It's still just 1 regiment. The other reason why cavalry is worth it is because it has what is a higher flanking range than infantry. This means that once you start winning a battle, once you have more guys on the field than they do, cavalry will do more damage than infantry will, and it'll damage more units. Cavalry, in other words, lets you sweep people off the field more effectively. It's kind of more of a win more bonus. So it's going to help you get more stack wipes, and if you're fighting multiple armies at once, it will help you do more damage to that first army before the second army arrives. Whew. So, having said that, how effective is this bonus to my total army? So right now with Denmark, I have 20 total units, 25% of them are cavalry. That's probably a little bit high. The most common wisdom, or the most common advice you'll see on the forums and different places, is that in the beginning of the game, you want about 20% cavalry, and then by the end, because you have more cannons, you're looking at maybe 10 to 15%. If you're a nation like a Horde or Poland or the Ottomans that already gets the bonus to cavalry, then it might be a good idea to go above those ratios. But for Denmark, which has no bonuses to combat ability whatsoever, this is probably a little bit too high to have cavalry. I'd probably prefer 16-4, but this is still reasonable for an early game army. So, if you crunch the numbers right now, my cavalry is doing approximately 40% of the shock damage of my army. That means that this idea right here, this 10% cavalry combat ability is going to be equivalent to 4% more casualties in the shock phase. 4% more casualties in the shock phase. That's good, but if you were to look at something like battlefield commissions, not battlefield commissions, but bayonet leaders, land leader shock +1, if you crunch the numbers, this will be about a 12.5% more casualties to your shock phase, where this is only a 4% increase to your shock phase if you already have like a lot of cavalry. So as far as pure fighting ability of your armies, this is going to be a relatively small bonus. This is going to be, you know, a fifth to a third as useful as bayonet leaders, depending on how much cavalry you have. In my opinion, the negative 10% cavalry cost is actually going to be more impactful. So if you look at cavalry costs, unlike with mercenaries, when you're looking at regular regiments, this cost is going to be applied to both the base and the maintenance per month. So this is going to take 0.05 ducats off of the maintenance cost of every one of your cavalry units. So good rule of thumb is, for every 4 cavalry units you have, this idea will allow you to support 1 extra infantry unit. If I were to take this idea right now from in this playthrough, this would save me 0.25 ducats per month because I have 5 units of cavalry. If you look at my total economy, 0.25 ducats per month is going to be pretty substantial because I'm making less than 10 ducats per month. As far as an economic boost goes, this is actually going to be higher than if I were to take, for example, Smithian economics. This economic bonus is going to be higher than Smithian economics and lower than bureaucracy for me right now. So it's really, right now, it's going to be a decent economic bonus and a so-so combat bonus. But overall, this is going to be an above-average military idea for me right now. So the bottom line on Noble Knights is that it's going to be very, very good early in the game, and probably only about half as effective later on in the game, but it's still, in my opinion, an above-average military bonus compared to most military ideas. I like this idea a lot, and it's strictly better than Finest of Horses in quality ideas because it affects their ability and their price. Alright, having said that, let's move on to local nobility. This is kind of a weird idea. This is hostile core creation costs on us 50%. And then plus 10% to vassals. So when you take over an enemy province and want to court into your empire, it has a base cost of 10 admin points per development. So if somebody else were to take over, and this is pronounced Vesteland, they would have to pay 50 admin points base to core it. If I were to take this idea, that would increase the price to 25%. To 75 admin points. Even if they have minus coring costs, this is still going to apply that 25 extra admin points regardless. It's an additive bonus. So in the way that the AI calculates, if an enemy has an option to attack its neighbors, a stronger enemy, it will be less likely to attack me because it's going to factor the coring costs into whether it's going to declare war or not. So this is essentially equates to a very, very situational a very, very situational diplomatic bonus. Because if you're getting your ass handed to you in a war, and you're losing territory, the last thing you care about is if the guy that took over your territory is suffering slightly. So the way that I'd look at this idea is more of a very, very minor situational diplomatic bonus. And as far as the income from vassals, plus 10%, that is virtually irrelevant. Part of the reason I chose Denmark was because at the beginning of the game, Denmark's vassals are actually about 1.5 times more powerful than Denmark itself. This is an extreme case of having powerful vassals. And even with that, vassals account for about 5% of my total economy. A 10% increase to vassals is going to be a 0.5% increase to my total economy. This is going to get me 0.04 extra ducats per month. Who cares? That's a really, really small bonus. So, in my opinion, this is the worst idea in the group. It's a highly, highly situational Diplo bonus and a virtually negligible economic bonus. Noble Knights, even if you have like the barest minimum of cavalry, is going to save you more money than the income from vassals will earn you. Moving on, we have serfdom. National manpower modifier plus 25%. This is actually a very good bonus. Now you look at serfdom, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh my god, levée en masse, that's half of levée en masse. Well, levée en masse is one of the best military ideas that there is. And even getting half of that bonus is still very, very good. If you look at Denmark right now, Denmark's maximum manpower is 19,000, but it's really 17,600 plus 10%. If I were to get serfdom, that would be 4,000 more manpower for me. What I find in my games is that every 2,000 manpower allows me to maintain one regular, to replace the casualties for just one regular infantry regiment. So you can think of, rule of thumb conversion, every 2,000 manpower lets you get one regular troop instead of one mercenary troop. So every 2,000 manpower is going to save you about 0.33 ducats. So if I were to get more manpower and I was able to support 2 extra troops instead of mercenaries, that would save me about 0.6 ducats per month. In other words, once I am at war, more manpower, or rather taking serfdom, could be like a 6% boost to my economy. That's very substantial. That is again probably going to be more helpful to your economy than, let's say, bureaucracy for economic ideas. So manpower to me is really money, because more manpower means more regular troops instead of mercenaries, which saves you money, and serfdom is going to be quite a big boost to your economy, and it scales very well through the entire game. So yeah, serfdom, definitely worth it. Our fourth in aristocratic ideas is noble officers, and this is going to be military tradition decay, which is kind of a difficult concept to understand. So if you look at your military, there's this thing you have called army tradition, which is going to affect a lot of things. It's going to give you more morale, manpower recovery speed, siege ability, and it's also going to determine how many pips your generals get. So however much tradition you have at any given time, 5% of it is going to decay every year. I have 9.1 tradition right now, and my decay rate is 0.45 per year, because 0.45 is 5% of 9.1. Now, the unfortunate part of tradition decay modifiers is that in order for this idea to save me one tradition per year, which is what battlefield commissions and quality education would get me, you already have to be at 100 army tradition. So this idea is actually strictly worse. This idea is strictly worse than any idea that actually raises your army tradition. And the less tradition you have, the less impactful this idea would be. If I were to take this idea right now, this would only save me about 1/10 of an army tradition every year. It's not going to be that impactful. So throughout the game, you are going to encounter events that might temporarily raise your army tradition. If you have a 5% decay rate, that is a half-life of 13 years. So if I all of a sudden was to get 100 army tradition and I had no other sources of tradition increases, I would go down to 50 after 13 years. If I was to take this idea, however, if I was to take noble officers, that would change it from a 5% decay down to a 4% decay. That would increase my half-life to 17 years. So instead of going from 100 to 50 army tradition in 13 years, it would take 17 years. So when good things happen to you, where you get a lump sum of army tradition really quickly, this idea will make that bonus last for longer. But really, when you think about army tradition, what you should be thinking about is your resting point. Because depending on your ideas, your forts, the battles you fight, and the sieges you win, you're going to have a roughly constant rate of army tradition gain balanced by this decay rate. And your army tradition is going to hover around a certain value for a long period of time. So that formula for what your military tradition resting point is, I'm not going to do the algebra, but it really comes out to gain per year times 100 divided by 5 minus your decay modifiers. So let's say you start as a nation that gets traditions per year, like Cyprus, and you decide to go here, and you decide to take both quality and defensive ideas. You'll be gaining 3 tradition per year, so your resting point, even without any battles or sieges, is going to be at 60. 3 gain per year, no decay modifier. So you can see with these two examples that a decay modifier is less impactful than a gain per year. Because if you had, instead 2 gain per year and 1 decay modifier, that would be the same as having 2.5 gain per year. That would take your resting point from 40 up to 50, whereas a gain per year would take you from 40 up to 60. So this is why these two examples right here is why I say that a decay modifier is about half as powerful as a gain per year. Because most of the game, you're going to spend it at around 40 or 50 military tradition, which means that this idea is going to be getting you 0.5 army tradition. So I would say that if you're trying to put this into context, this is about as powerful, but this is about half as powerful as battlefield commissions or quality education. However, those are some of the best military ideas there are, so even getting half of that is still good. There are some other things I wanted to look at. If you already have 4 gain per year from various sources, 1 decay modifier is going to be as good as 5 gain per year. That means that if you're already like near 100 army tradition, this is going to help you stay up there. So this idea becomes equivalent. So noble officers becomes equivalent to battlefield commissions, quality education, once you're already close to 100 military tradition. So, bottom line is, if you do the math, a point of decay reduction is going to be a 25% increase in your base resting point. It will take you from 20 to 25. It will take you from 40 to 50. It will take you from 80 to 100. And then, if you have 2 points of decay reduction, it's going to be a 66.7% increase in base resting point. It will take you from 40 up to 66.7. It will take you from 30 to 50. It will take you from 60 to 100. So if you are concerned with staying at 100 military tradition, at the end of the day, your gain per year plus your decay rate has to add up to 5 through various sources. So that was way too much math, even for me, so let's move on to the next idea. So, here we go. International nobility, +1 diplomat. This is the only idea that doesn't use diplo points that gets you a diplomat. So how powerful is a diplomat? If you're already a kingdom and you have 3 diplomats, you probably have enough to do everything you have to do, so it's going to be more of a quality of life bonus. Where this is really helpful is if you start as a duchy, you only have 2 diplomats. Going from 2 to 3 is going to enable you to do a lot more. So this idea is hard to quantify because there's no real numbers involved. But this is going to be a substantial bonus. This is an overall good idea. Especially if you're like me and you don't really optimize your use of diplomats, this will allow you to do a lot more things diplomatically. So this is a good idea. Noble resilience, -20 cost of reducing war exhaustion. So every point of war exhaustion costs 70. Every 2 points costs 75 to reduce. If you have this idea, it will save you 15 diplo points every time you reduce war exhaustion. Assuming the diplo military points are equivalent, you will have to reduce war exhaustion 27 times for this idea to pay for itself. So I think, reasonably speaking, if you don't have any war exhaustion modifiers, you might find yourself reducing war exhaustion once every 5 years, maybe more or less depending on how you fight. So even at that rate, this will save you 300 diplo points every year, every 100 years. So this is kind of a slow burn bonus, but overall it's probably going to be worth it. It's not a great idea, but at the very least it is probably worth the 400 military points that you put into it. So yeah, this is most likely the second weakest idea in the group, but it's still a decent bonus nonetheless. Our last idea is military traditions, technology cost reduction. Talked about this in my last video. If you take this idea first, it will save you 1,600 military points through the entire game, or rather 60 military points every time you get a technology level. Good bonus overall. This will earn you a couple hundred military points throughout the entire game. It's not great. It doesn't do anything for you immediately, but over the course of the game it helps you. I like it. And finally, by completing the group, you get 1 leader without upkeep and 10% nobility loyalty. So if you look at your estates, this idea, or this finisher, will allow you to raise additional levies and demand military support more often without your nobles becoming unhappy. Because as soon as you go below 40% happiness, if I was to example demand military support, you go from plus 20% manpower recovery down to minus 10% manpower recovery. So if I had that idea, I would remain up at plus 20% manpower recovery speed. So, on average, at any given time, having this finisher will probably give you around 10% manpower recovery speed. So that's probably going to be about half as good as the Young Conserve. But you also get, as a finisher, 1 leader without upkeep. If you look at my situation right now, I'm only able to support 2 military leaders. So I can put an admiral on my fleet and 1 general, and that's all I have. So what I often find is that when I'm fighting a battle, when I'm fighting a war, I want at least 2 generals. I'll have a general with a siege pip to do a siege at any given time. Then I'll have a roving army that actually fights the battle. So I'll have a siege general and a battle general, have them work in tandem. Right now, if I fight a war, I'm going to have to go without one of those. I'm going to have to go without an extra general or without an admiral. So leaders without upkeep is going to help me fight a better war, fight a better well-balanced war, without having to go over my leader's limit and getting that -1 military point per turn because you go over your leader limit. It's not a great bonus, but it's still useful. I still think it's an above average bonus compared to these finishers. Certainly better than that plus 5% recover army morale speed. So, yeah, overall, the theme of Aristocratic Ideas is that it doesn't have a single amazing bonus, but what it has is a bunch of policies, especially these 3 right here, that are half as good as like the absolute best military ideas. It's going to be an all-around bonus if you go aristocratic. Something I should mention is that in general, if you go aristocratic, I believe that you almost always want to go influence as well. I think influence and aristocratic are 2 ideas that work very, very well together. Because when you go influence ideas, you get more diplomatic relations, so which means that you put a bigger strain on your diplomats to maintain these relations, yet aristocratic allows you to make up for that. So I think there's some great synergy here between the extra diplomat of aristocratic and the extra diplomatic relations of influence ideas. In addition to that, if you go influence and aristocratic, it will also unlock the decision that allows you to become a republic. And there are several reasons why you would like to do that. So I'm going to exit back towards the menu and show you a particular playthrough I had recently, or that I'm in the middle of. So pardon the wait here as we go now towards my ongoing Ottomans game. Sorry about the wait. I should really edit this out, but I don't feel like using editing software. So yeah, so here's my Coptic Ottoman Republic game. I know this is totally OP, but I still just want to have some fun blobbing like crazy. And in this game, I decided to go with aristocratic ideas and combine them with influence ideas to become a republic. So right now I'm a republic, and as a result of that, I'm enjoying some economic bonuses and that -5 years of separatism. So when you combine that with religious ideas, I'm able to expand a great deal. I'm able to make the areas of my land that do not have my culture more productive, and I make it easier to conquer new lands while avoiding rebellion. So there are a lot of ancillary bonuses that I'm getting from being a republic that I would not have been able to have had I not gone aristocratic ideas. So the combination of aristocratic and influence to become a republic is something you should keep in mind if you are taking these ideas. So, that's all I have for you today. My verdict on aristocratic ideas is that they are useful, but situationally useful. I don't think they are the end-all, be-all. I don't think they are as good or as much of a must-have as administrative or religious/humanist, but they're still worth looking at. I think there's a lot of merit in them, and hopefully, after this video, you can decide for yourself whether you want to have them or not. Whew. I need to get some water and breathe. That was a long conversation, but hopefully you got something out of it, and I will see you next time. Bye.